Welcome. Why are you so easily offended? Insights from Kenji, the wise observer of the human heart. Have you ever dreamed of becoming a person who cannot be shaken? One impervious to criticism, rejection, loss, or betrayal. Have you longed for the day when the pain, so quiet and unseen from the outside yet gnawing from within, finally releases its grip on you? When you no longer have to pretend everything is fine, simply because it's expected of you. Perhaps you are weary of endlessly pleasing, of wearing a mask of strength that demands you be unapproachable, composed, and in control of everything. Deep down, you simply wish, even for a moment, to allow yourself weakness, not as a defeat, but as a reprieve from an internal war. Let me tell you what few dare to voice. As long as you run from pain, it controls you. As long as you try to hide yourself, to conceal, to shield, you remain a hostage to events, to words that wound, to actions that disappoint, to a silence that echoes louder than any accusation. And this is not weakness. This is the human experience. The only difference is how well we have learned to conceal it. Kenji, a profound teacher of the mind, once observed, "We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become." And this is where the essence lies. It's not about closing yourself off from the world and becoming an indifferent shadow. It's about illuminating all that has remained in shadow until now, all that has secretly guided you. For true strength is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of awareness even when you suffer. It is the ability to know who you are, no matter what. You assume that suffering comes from external sources, from words spoken to you, from actions taken against you, from betrayals you did not expect. But the truth is much deeper. No external event has the true power to wound you if there isn't already an open wound within. What causes pain is not the actions of others, but what those actions awaken in you. An old story you still tell yourself. A trauma you never dared to face. It is the emptiness you cover with strength, pride, or an endless desire to appear normal. Kenji taught, "The pain we feel from the world is a reflection of what we have not yet integrated within ourselves." This is why one person can endure loss with clarity, while another shatters from an offensive remark. The question is not what happens. The question is where it lands. And here lies the most painful truth. You suffer so deeply because deep down, you still believe you can control how the world should treat you. You strive to be good enough, smart enough, strong enough, hoping it will protect you from pain. But control is an illusion, and the tighter you cling to it, the more you live in tension, trying to prevent what cannot be prevented. If you want to stop suffering, stop defending against suffering. You don't need more control. You need more awareness. As long as you believe that other people must change for you to feel safe, you remain a slave to their behavior. Freedom begins the moment you realize everything that comes from outside only has power if it resonates within you. The greatest lie you have been convinced of is that you control your life. It's time to awaken, for this is not true. At least not as long as you live on autopilot, reacting automatically without understanding its origin, feeling emotions without knowing their roots, making decisions you later sabotage. Kenji made it unequivocally clear. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is precisely what is happening to you right now. Pain surfacing without reason, anger arising from nowhere, sadness washing over without explanation. These are not coincidences. These are signals, messages from those parts of you that you once repressed, forgot, or ignored. Kenji called this the shadow or the unconscious. And it's not just a vague backdrop of thoughts. It is a living system. Memories, wounds, desires, fears that have not vanished. They simply operate from the depths, determining how you react, feel, and choose. Have you ever wondered why certain words devastate you, but not others? Because they touch those internal wounds that are still bleeding. And if they hurt, it means you haven't yet faced them. You've merely swept them under the psychological rug. But now, you repeatedly stumble over these unresolved knots. Kenji noted, "We cannot change what we do not accept. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." And what are you doing? You judge yourself. You suppress feelings. You force yourself into silence, as if that will bring relief. But the truth is, the unconscious does not disappear if ignored. It simply finds more painful forms of manifestation in the destructive relationships you recreate, in the patterns of self-sabotage you can't shake, in the anxiety that rises in life's calmest moments. This is not karma, not bad luck, not misfortune. This is your inner self knocking from within. Only you are still asleep. Do you want to become someone who is no longer wounded? Then stop running from yourself. Until you know your own unconscious, you will remain a puppet of your emotions. And the more fiercely you try to protect yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable you become to the pain within. But there is a way out. And it is not in armor, not in trying to be strong, cold, or unapproachable, but in integration, in acceptance, in the awareness of everything that lives in your shadow and yearns to be heard. For becoming unshakable is not an act of defense. It is an act of the deepest self-knowledge. What does it mean to be a person who cannot be broken? Why is strength not in resistance, but in honest self-acceptance? Many believe the only way not to be wounded is to close off. They build walls, wear masks, create emotional armor, and pretend that nothing affects them. They say, "I don't care anymore. It doesn't bother me. Nothing touches me." But inside, they continue to suffer, slowly consumed by pain they do not recognize. Because the real problem is not what you feel, but that you don't understand what you feel and why. This only happens to those who have not yet met themselves, who confuse strength with suppression and peace with detachment. Kenji wisely stated, "Know all theories, master all techniques, but when you touch a human soul, be simply human. And this soul, your soul, which you hide behind the image of a strong, collected, controlling persona, cries out to finally be noticed. Emotional strength is not coldness, indifference, avoidance of conflict, or a mask of 'I don't care.' It is the ability to remain alive despite pain. It is the ability to accept, not avoid. It is the capacity to illuminate what you've kept in darkness. You do not become unshakable by creating barriers between yourself and the world. You become unshakable when you realize nothing external can destroy what you have already integrated within. When you accept your fears, shadows, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities, you cease to be their slave. You cease to be a reaction. You become an observer. You begin to choose. And this is true freedom. Kenji called this path individuation, not striving to be better, but striving to be whole. Individuation is not the attainment of perfection, but a return to the fullness of yourself. You don't need to become perfect. You need to become fully yourself. And here is a truth rarely spoken aloud. The more you run from your pain, the more persistently it pursues you. The more you strive to appear invulnerable, the easier it is to shatter you. But as soon as you dare to look at your wounds, not to turn away, but to see them, to touch them, as soon as you accept everything within yourself, both the light and the dark, the noble and the shameful, the world ceases to have power over you. But this path requires courage. The courage to be honest with yourself. The courage to remove the mask. The courage to feel. For it is precisely in your pain that the key to transformation is hidden. It is in suffering that the entry point to true strength lies. A strength that cannot be taken away because it is within. How can suffering cease to be an enemy and become a gateway to your profound freedom? Let's go even deeper. This time, without fear. From childhood, you were taught to fear pain. You were instilled with the belief that suffering is a sign of weakness, that tears are helplessness. That feeling too deeply is dangerous because it makes you vulnerable, and you began to flee, avoid, deny. But the truth is, the faster you run from pain, the faster it catches up. And what's worse, it changes form. It hides behind a mask of anxiety, expresses itself in anger, in apathy, in endless boredom, in impulses of self-destruction that seem to have no explanation. Ignored pain does not disappear. It simply begins to burrow within you, undermining you from the inside until one day, without warning, everything collapses. Kenji saw suffering differently. He believed pain is a messenger. It is the voice of the unconscious. It is the language by which your soul, your true self, tries to reach you. He wrote, "Depression, like a lady in black. If she comes, do not chase her away. Invite her to sit, offer her a cup of tea, and listen to what she has to say." But you don't listen. You distract yourself, immerse yourself in tasks, drown out anxiety by scrolling feeds, chattering with external noise. You do everything not to hear yourself. Yet the main question is so simple and so acutely before you. What is this pain trying to show you? Pain causes so much suffering because there is a war within you. A part of you desires growth, and a part fears it. One part asks for change, while another clings desperately to the old. And it is in this internal division that suffering is born, because true transformation is always accompanied by the loss of old beliefs, familiar but toxic ties, roles you clung to. It is always an act of internal death, followed by the birth of a new self. And, paradoxically, it is in the space of destruction, precisely when the old crumbles, when former supports vanish and wounds are exposed, that you suddenly see, for the first time, who you truly are, without armor, without protective masks, without pretense. And it is then that suffering becomes sacred, because it brings you to your knees before the only force that can truly heal you, yourself. Kenji knew this. He understood that pain is not a system error. It is its renewal mechanism. It is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a true voyage on the path to individuation. The problem is that most give up. They do not walk this dark path. They get scared. They return to the surface. They play roles again, just to avoid feeling. But not you. If you have reached this point, it means you are ready. Ready not just to survive, but to go through. To walk through the darkness, not avoiding it, but understanding that within it lie the seeds of your strength. And it is in this process that you become unshakable. not because nothing touches you anymore, but because you have walked through fire. You have met your demons. You have looked into the face of your wounds, addiction, shame, anger, and said, I see you. You are a part of me, but you no longer control me. And here is true strength, not in armor, but in transparency before your own darkness. You no longer depend on external opinions, on winning arguments, or on the need to appear strong, because you know who you are. And this knowledge is inalienable. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be denied. It is at your very core. True armor is not a shield. It is a core. The integration of all your parts, both light and dark, into a consciousness that remains calm, even in the storm. You may still be touched by pain, but it will not destroy you. You may still be vulnerable, but you no longer lose yourself. Because you have ceased to be a reaction and have become a presence. You have stopped living on the surface and begun to live in depth. But depth is not without its price. The price is solitude. Not because you will be left alone, but because few dare to follow you. Most are stuck at the level of masks, at the level of everything is fine, at the level of fearing to feel. When you step out of this shell, you naturally distance yourself, not out of pride, but out of growth. You are not distancing yourself from people. You simply no longer fit in the places where you used to hide. This is not rejection. It is maturity. And this is what it all comes down to. Awareness is your shield. Not strength, not will, not proof, but clarity. For clarity gives freedom. In it, everything becomes visible. Where is your pain? Where is another's projection? Where is the reaction? And where is the choice? This profound understanding is precisely about this. It is about awareness as the only state in which nothing, absolutely nothing, has power over you. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will protect you from the pain of the external world if you remain blind to the pain within. Words will still wound. Rejection will sting. Losses will break you from the inside until you awaken. But awakening is not a flash of light, not an instantaneous epiphany. It is a daily choice to look within, even if it's scary, even if it hurts. It is taking full responsibility for everything you feel, without blame, without victimhood, without excuses. Kenji shared this truth. What you deny persists, and what you accept transforms you. All your life, you have tried to avoid the fear of not being enough, the emptiness left by rejection, the pain hidden in loneliness, that quiet ache of not being truly seen by anyone. What did you do? You cowered, hid, shrank in an attempt to control everything, became ideal, strong, convenient. And this brought you here, tired, exhausted, worn out by a struggle not so much with the world as with yourself. But now you know. True emotional immunity is not rigidity. It is clarity. It is not a wall. It is deep self-understanding. Because when you know where your wound is, where your trigger comes from, what voice sounds within you against the backdrop of others' words, the world loses the power to destroy you. You still feel, but you no longer drown. You still suffer, but you don't lose yourself. And this changes everything. Your defense is not an escape from life. It is, on the contrary, a deep, full presence within it. Those who live on the surface are swayed by every storm. But those who have dived deep know that at the bottom there is silence. At the bottom there is stability. At the bottom there is strength. And that is where you are going now. When you live from this depth, from the integration of presence and truth, The world may rage around you, but it no longer knows where to strike.